Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be going over the absolute best infantry units with shields within the game. Keep in mind that this isn't going to include spearmen, as I am going to consider them in a category of their own, and I'll be having their own video on the best spearmen in the game, but so far spearmen seem to be very ineffective, so that's about last on what is probably going to be the best within the game. But anyways, before I start the video, I kindly ask that you consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot, especially on my road to 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate that, but no more. I'm just going to ask that you consider it. So anyways, let's just hop into the video of the best shielded infantry within the game of Bannerlord. Okay, so before we start really going over things, I'm going to be explaining the best shielded infantry. No, I repeated myself on that one, but I just want to clarify, these are the ones with shields. And it's only going to be going over the best infantry at their highest level, which is tier 5. This is going to be all tier 5 infantry, so just make sure to keep that in mind. Tier 5 shielded infantry. I know I'm repeating, but I'm doing it on purpose, so y'all understand and don't lose your minds on me. But anyways, we're going to start with the bad tier 5 infantry, and that is the Azurai Veteran Infantry. This infantry is probably one of the least effective for all of the infantry out there. They have one of the least amounts of total armor, but all their armor is on their body. And with the current meta of the game, archers are overpowered and headshot everything. They only have a total of 18 head armor, so they will get absolutely slaughtered by any archers that you could possibly come against, especially Fiends, which I'll get into more later in a different video, so make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for that. But basically, they are armed with a Cascara, which is, I believe, a shorter sword, a wooden Adarga. I don't know what that is. That's a shield, I believe. Adarga is a shield. And then they have a spear, which aren't necessarily the most effective at this point in time. And next, they are armed with Eastern javelins. I mean, they could be effective javelin infantry, but overall, they're pretty good, especially because they're like a tier 5 troop. But out of all the tier 5 troops you could really grind for, all the tier 5 like shielded troops, they are probably one of the worst. And they have some of the heaviest armor, and the shield is absolutely horrible. And with the awful head armor, once again, they get one-shotted. And they are also one of the slowest troops within the game of Bannerlord, so it's really problematic if you're trying to move places. And if your head is exposed with 0 armor and you're walking very slowly, you are going to get absolutely picked apart by archers, which are currently the meta right now in this game, until archers are inevitably nerfed by Tailworlds. But for now, they are probably one of the worst infantries in the game, and they can't really deal with Cav. Alright, and that about does it for the absolute worst of the tier 5 infantry. Okay, now we're going to be going over like the average category within the game, and this one is going to be, or start with actually, because there are 2 units that I put in this category personally, and that's going to be the Khazate Dark Hand. I mean, it's alright, it's not bad at all, and I mean, they do look extremely cool. Like, imagine if you had to face an army of these people, I'd be kind of mortified already, besides the fact that I'm in battle. But overall, they have really good armor, especially on their head and on their body, and their arm and leg are really good. They have a saber, a cav shield, which is probably one of the better shields in the game, and a leaf spear. And they also have javelins, which helps when dealing with cav, which you'll probably face a lot of, especially if you're around the Khazai area. And they have both throwing weapons. They have throwing weapons and spear, which is good against Cav. But the spear is shorter compared to other spears, but has more damage and more speed, and it's better between the sergeants and legionary spears. The shield is probably one of the worst for a tier 5, but it's not the best. But it's not like the best at being the worst. My bad. That's what I meant to phrase. But it's also the second heaviest troop besides the Azurai, and it's almost good, but it has lowish armor, a bad shield, and it is very slow. Like, once again, archers are going to absolutely pick off this unit. And that's going to be the one out of 2 okay ones. I mean, it has good armor, like 149 total armor, 48 head, 45 body, 28 arm, and 28 leg armor. But it's not necessarily like the absolute greatest tier 5 that you should spend your time actively trying to get. But let's move on to a different troop now. And next up in the average category, the Battalion Weidling is probably going to be the second most average troop out there. It's in a similar position to the Dark Hand though, and it has the same spear as the other Sergeant class, and it has a really good shield, and and javelins, which is important when combating cavalry. The only thing stopping it from being in a good tier is its very low armor values, specifically the helmet, and which only has 30 armor on it, which means it was going to get absolutely picked apart by archers, because archers are the meta. Once again, repeating myself about that, because archers really are the meta, and archers are probably one of the most strongest troops in the game at the moment. But overall, I do think that the body armor is pretty good, but then again, body armor shouldn't really matter, especially if you have a good shield, which it does. And if it's slow, which this is on the slower side, it's going to get picked apart by archers, which is not going to make it a good troop, because you're going to need this troop to walk across a field with a shield and get picked apart by archers. And it has no head armor, so a single shot to the head is going to end this troop, therefore making it useless. But anyways, that's about covers it for the okay category. Now let's start getting into the actually good stuff. Alright, now we are in the good category for the best shielded infantry in the game. And the first one on this list is going to be the Blandy and Sergeant. I mean, he looks like a tin can. Like, I don't think anyone's going to be able to beat a tin can. But otherwise, I do believe that this has a higher armor than the last, which has 163 total armor. As you can see, the helmet gives that away. It has 42 head, 45 body, and 43 arm, making it one of the most armored troops in the out of the shielded infantry group. And it can have a sword or a mace, and both are similar to Legionary, but the mace is a pretty slow weapon, but it's better against armor, so it could be a great damage dealing weapon against armor. And the Sergeant can have two variants with it. It can spawn with a shield or a two-handed sword, which does a ton of damage and is really long. But this is a disadvantage because, once again, archers are going to pick this to shreds. And it does have a spear, but it's alright, and it's not necessarily the best spear out of all of it. But it does have an advantage against cav. But overall, the Blandy and Sergeant is a good weapon, is a good troop to have in your army, because its armor is really effective, it's really strong, and it deals a ton of damage. It packs a punch, but it doesn't have any throwing weapons, which could make it exposed and weak to cav. But it does have a spear, which could cover some of those shortcomings. But I do find spearmen are really ineffective at dealing with cav, even though that shouldn't necessarily be the truth. But overall, this is going to be one of the best, or one of the better troops to have within your army, especially for sieges, because they'll be able to take some and give some. But anyways, let's start getting into the other troops for this good category. Alright, next up we are going to be going over the Stygian Veteran Warrior. This is another tier 5 troop and has a lot of armor, but it only has 161 total armor. It has 45 head, 49 body, 36 arm, and 31 leg. So it's not as well versed as the Blandy and Sergeant is, but it still has a significant amount of armor, although it has 2 less armor, but it has more armor in the important places, more specifically the body and the head. And if you get shot in the arm, good luck. It is a scratch. But anyways, it has an axe, a shield. It has 2 different shields, a round shield or a cav shield, and it has javelins, which makes it probably more effective than spearmen against cav charges. And its melee weapon is probably the best melee weapon out of all the troops because it's an axe. It's really fast and it deals a ton of damage, although it's quite short, but it's better than the Sergeant's maces. And it has 2 variants. It has one with a good shield, which has 330 HP, and one with a very good shield, which has a 480 hit points. But it does lack a pole arm or a long ranged weapon to deal with cav, but I don't find those make a difference. And they have very limited ammo, but an entire formation with these, with their javelins, will pack a significant punch. I always thought that having a bunch of javelin troops in your army would make it extremely effective against other lower tier armies, because they'd slaughter half of them with the first initial onslaught of javelin throwing. But the veteran warrior is probably one of the best garrison troops because the javelins can deal out a ton of damage, and since it doesn't have to deal with cav at all, and since they have heavy head armor, they can take some bullets, or not bullets, but take some arrows from archers. And since they'll be in sieges where cav's not a factor, that's when they'll probably be the most effective troop. And their shield breaking axe will be extremely effective when people are in cramped conditions and can absolute and just shield, and it takes forever to actually kill something. But anyways, let's get into the absolute best infantry in the entire game of Bannerlord. The absolute best infantry is going to be the Imperial Legionary. This has a stunning 187 total armor. His helmet has 40 head, its body has 62 armor, 41 long armor, and 44 leg armor. Although it has weaker head armor, the body armor makes it a very tough opponent. It has a sword or a mace and a spear, and it also has a kite shield or even more armored kite shield, and it is by far the most armored troop in this category of troops, the shielded infantry category. And it, once again, it has a sword or a mace and a spear and a shield, but it doesn't have ranged weaponry, which could make it a problem when that initial onslaught comes out. But once they get in the action, they'll be an extremely effective troop. And there are variants of this that mix up shields, mix up maces, swords, everything. And however, there is a certain variant of this one that spawns with an absolutely terrible shield that has only 160 hit points. But now they still have their other variants, which more than make up for their lacking variants. And this is by far the best infantry. However, the good ones are very close to this and don't necessarily have that much of a difference between the two, but the Imperial Legionary just takes the cake. It is one of the best infantry in the game, and it just slightly edges over the Sergeant and the Veteran Warrior. It just, that armor and just the shields, the armor, the weapons it has makes it one of the better troops in the game, or in fact makes it one of the best infantry troops in the game. So I highly recommend you grind that out, which would entail going through the Imperial recruits, infantrymen, trained infantrymen, and the veteran infantrymen to the Legionary. Although the Manavliton is pretty good, I don't think it has a shield, which is extremely problematic when dealing with the meta, which is archers. So by far the Legionary is going to be the best troop within the game. And that about settles all I have to say for this episode. I just wanted to thank you. I just wanted to close by thanking every single one of you for watching the videos and making sure that, like, I'll have fun and educating people in the comments and everything. Like, truly, thank you for that. When you guys respond to comments, it helps me out. And when you like the video, it helps me out. So please do that. And once again, I just ask that you consider subscribing. I highly recommend you do it, especially if you watch this much of the video. And remember, none of you all passed the test this time, but I'm going to say it. If you say the word butter in the comments, I will shout you out in the next video. Anyways, if anyone makes it this far, that'd be awesome. But if not, well, so be it. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. This has been DroBlue. Make sure to like the video and subscribe.